You're about to find out what the Bureau X factor is and why it matters. Okay. So, there is most definitely something that you need to remember and keep at the forefront of your mind every single time that you write a dispute letter. And that's the X factor. Okay. It pays to remember that the bureaus are for profit businesses. This means that they're in business to make money. Why else would they be? Right? So when dealing with the bureaus, you should remember who they get their money from and what motivations they do or don't have for keeping things accurate. The bureau's main customers are creditors, and better credit for consumers does not translate into better profits for either the bureaus or creditors. So, unfortunately, getting negative items removed can at times seem like an uphill battle, right? So, this is something where you need to mentally prepare to receive the runaround. I tell people all the time, and they get pissed off and all that kind of stuff because they don't like to hear that it's going to be difficult. But that is the truth, and you need to keep it, like I said, at the forefront of your mind. And this is the X factor, okay? You need to develop a runaround proof system, and you need to remain persistent. Remember that sometimes winning is simply a matter of making it to where it's no longer profitable for the credit bureau to ignore the consumer. Also, remember that you can't win them all and you shouldn't try to. Okay. So, this is what I call the impossible triangle. And each of these has their own customers. So, who are the customers? For the bureaus, it's the creditors. This means that they act in the best interest of the creditor and not the consumer. For the creditors, they have three: consumer, collector, bureau. Obviously, the consumer obtains credit from the creditor. The history is reported to the credit bureaus, positively or negatively. And if the consumer does not pay, then the account may be sent to collections, right? So, once again, consumer, collector, bureau. Now, with the collector, they have two: creditor and bureau. The creditor pays the collector to attempt to collect the debt, and then this is reported to the credit bureaus. Okay. So, I mean, very simple information. And I did have some really awesome animations and all that kind of stuff for this. They weren't just static slides, but unfortunately, my transitions were working without me and they were going like 7 ahead. And I just can't have that. So, we're just looking at this as regular PDF instead of slides. Anywho, so you need to know how to avoid a frivolous response. So we might be jumping around a little bit, but this is very, very important information. It all goes with this X factor, and it's all going to come together at the end. So stay until the end. Okay. So the first thing is that you need to provide all required information. The second is that it needs to be consumer authentic. The third is that it must be unique. And fourth, it must have a new reason every single time you dispute. So when I say all required information, it means that you need to make sure your disputes meet the criteria of containing all necessary info. If incomplete, it can be flagged. Okay, so this means that um, you know, you can't dispute using the same thing each time. You have to have, the credit name, the account number, what you're disputing, why you're disputing it, and what the outcome should be, right? So exactly what's being disputed, right? So, I don't know, the date last active is inaccurate. This is the date, this is the date, this is the date, and I want it to be removed, or it needs to be updated, or it needs to be corrected, or it needs to be, stop reporting it, or whatever it is. So you're putting all this required information for each and every single dispute. So you're cutting down on the possibility of anything other than the outcome that you want. Now, when I say consumer authentic, what I mean is that you have to make sure your disputes are not like it came from a credit repair company. Now, there's nothing wrong with a credit repair company creating a dispute, right? But if you go through section 623, it does state in there that if it comes from a credit repair company, the creditor can ignore the dispute. Go and check it out. Go look it up for yourself. You don't have to believe me. Never take what I say at face value. Always do your homework. Always do your homework for stuff that I say, stuff that I show you, stuff that someone else says, so on and so forth. Okay. So now there's nothing in there that says it for the bureaus. However, 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 there's a huge however on that one. You don't want them to know. You don't want them to know because there's another section in there having to do with, loopholes and, this does apply to you if, but it does not apply if it comes from a credit repair company. So it needs to be consumer authentic. It needs to look like it came from you, the consumer, instead of a company. Okay. It also has to be unique. You have to do everything possible to make sure that your dispute is as unique as possible. So do not use a letter multiple times, right? Every single letter that I send out is written right then. There's no letter stored. There's nothing. I write that letter for every single client I have right at that moment. Now, does it take substantially longer to do it? Well, I have my techniques, right? But we're not talking about secrets right now. We're not talking about automation right now. And we're not talking about coding and programming right now. We are talking about uniqueness. Okay. So that is where factual based disputes come in. Okay. So what I mean is that most companies send out the same series of letters for every single client that they have, every single one of them, 10,000, 100, 100,000, 50,000. They all get the same damn letters, but it's their information on it, their accounts, and then they just go boop, click enter, and out spits the letter. You can't do that. You don't want to do it. The first thing that happens when your letter gets to the bureaus is that they determine whether it's a template or not. And we're about to look at that as well for you to better understand that process. Now, obviously, if you know me, you know I'm all about factual disputes. And so the last one, using a new reason, should not need to be explained. But basically, you never want to send the same dispute twice. Okay. So many so-called professionals will instruct you to just send the same dispute over and over and over again. And this is a good way to get flagged. And you just don't want to do that. Okay. So now what happens at the bureaus is that, the bureau receives your letter in the mail. It is then fed into a system that opens and scans and attempts to categorize and route automatically. If it's successful, the letter is compared to a massive database to determine whether it's a canned letter. When I say canned, I'm talking about a template. If it is, it's going to be flagged as frivolous, okay? Or they're just automatically going to tell you, hey, this has been verified. Obviously, no, dude, it wasn't. There's been no investigation, obviously, okay? Then it gets auto-converted to a numerical code and sent to the creditor via e-Oscar, all right? Now, a lot of you try to beat the whole e-Oscar system. Dude, it's just like, yeah, a lot of materials say, do this and do that. And, even I've provided some ways to get around it, but that's just because, I like for you to have all available options to you. But the best option is to learn to do this correctly. And the way to do this correctly is using factual based disputes. And that is exactly what I teach so that you know exactly how to get laser targeted results. Okay. Now, if it goes to a human, that's why it says human interaction. What's going to happen is that they are going to turn it into a numerical code and it's going to go over to the creditor. So no matter what you do, it's going to be turned into a freaking numerical code. So why don't you learn how to do this correctly? Because it's going to go this way no matter what you do. Okay. So then the furnisher will use an automatic or semi-automatic method to handle the disputes. And we're even going to talk about that as well. All right. So this is the credit bureau investigation process. And I really want to laugh when I say investigation. In other words, it's the fake investigation. And this is what irks me so much is when I'm talking with someone and they're like, well, why does it take so long to remove X? And why does it take so long to remove Y? Well, first of all, why didn't you start like longer ago? Okay. Nothing runs on your time frame. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you have a time frame, you shouldn't even be doing this. And the third thing is there's no such thing as an investigation. There aren't people who are just going to delve into this and make sure that your information is accurate because Congress says so and it's a federal law. No, dude, this whole thing is pretend. The entire point behind the investigation is to do it as quickly and cheaply as possible and to basically throw out your dispute. Every single dispute that you send in, it's a fight to get it to go through. So anybody that gets a deletion it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Okay, so unless you understand the process behind this, you can't appreciate it. And that's another reason why I'm showing you this, because you gotta understand the process. You have to understand that this whole thing is fake. It's all automated. There's nothing about it. It's a fake investigation. So the Bureau gets detailed disputes, support, and documentation for the consumer. They make an automated attempt to find a reason to ignore or rule out the dispute. They do this every single time. They get the letter and they try to find a reason to immediately send it back and say, this is no good. We're not going to investigate. We're not going to reinvestigate. You're not going to be able to do future disputes because of X, Y, and Z. Okay. Then if it goes past it, the creditor receives the Bureau's lousy numeric translation of the consumer's dispute. And remember that we said the consumer sent supporting documentation? Well, that doesn't get sent. Even though, and we're also going to look at this, it's relevant, right? It's relevant. If I'm saying I'm not late and I'm providing copies of my bank statements that prove that I wasn't late because it shows my, that my payment was actually, accepted by them on time and blah, 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 then how would that not be relevant? Well, it doesn't get sent. Okay. They get a numeric code. That is it. It's a 2 to 3 digit code. Your whole dispute reason turns into a 2 to 3 digit code. Those 30 pages of supporting documentation that you sent in, it doesn't get sent with it. It's a 2 to 3 digit code. That's it. If the dispute killing attempt fails, the Bureau sends a numeric code to the creditor that might barely describe the dispute, right? And then the creditor responds to the Bureau's, oftentimes in a process equally as worthless in terms of its effect on accuracy, okay? The Bureau parrots the creditor's response to the consumer, and investigation complete. Nobody in their right mind is going to call this an investigation. Do you disagree? So, oh God, I mean, this entire thing is just like, what? All right. Unreasonable definition of reasonable investigation. So having bad credit is basically like being in financial jail, right? And these non-investigations are part of the reason that it's extremely difficult for consumers to get legitimate credit problems fixed. I mean, that's the first thing. Here's another area where the definition of a term doesn't exactly line up with what most people would expect to be reality. We would assume that it would include any documentation submitted with a dispute letter, like I was just going over. But the bureaus convert disputes into numeric codes. The numeric code gets sent to the furnisher, and that is it. That's it. Even if the consumer submits 30 pages of evidence and documentation, the same 3 numeric code gets sent to the furnisher. The creditor never sees the documentation that was sent to the bureaus by the consumer. The creditor never sees the documentation that was sent by the consumer. Well, now, according to the FCRA, the credit bureaus are required to conduct a reasonable investigation into consumer disputes. Now, I would consider that documentation to be relevant information. I mean, don't you? All right, so I don't know, man. Let's go to the next one. I mean, yep. Once again, most reasonable people would agree that supporting documentation and similar evidence would be reasonably considered to be part of relevant information, but it's not. There is no room for reasonable people on this. It's not relevant. But with the shoddy off-brand of reasonable investigation used by the credit bureau, supporting documentation apparently isn't relevant, okay? Now, this doesn't mean supporting documentation is useless. However, I believe that supporting documentation is part of all relevant information and is therefore part of what the bureau should be sending to the creditors. By not doing so, I believe that they're in violation of the FCRA. Now, all of this is included in my full course as well as other methods based on this idea. But let's look at the old process. Back in the day before EOSCR, the dispute resolution system and investigations were mostly sorry about that, that was my phone, were mostly paper-based and involved paper forms called Consumer Dispute Verification Forms, or CDV for short. And the form was sent to the furnisher where, they filled out whatever their parts and they returned the form to the bureaus. Now, a lot of consumers get this wrong. They don't realize that this entire thing now is automated and that there is none of this timeout, right? So this process allows for human error and for the expiration of the 30-day period in many cases, resulting in disputed information having been deleted because the time limit had expired on the dispute process. However, the automation of the dispute resolution process drastically reduced the likelihood of a dispute being deleted due to the timing out, because there's always going to be a response, right? Even if you don't receive a response, it's going to state in their system on their end that they can show to the court that they sent out X on X date and all that kind of stuff. So it goes to say that this entire system is broken and there's no more loophole, right? So this loophole closed with automation and consumers are left to rely on a bureau's investigation process rather than on the time clock. And unfortunately, the dispute investigation system is broken, as I mentioned, right? As you can clearly see now. So what this all boils down to is, what is the driving force behind the credit dispute resolution system? It is designed to run disputes through the system as quickly and as cheaply as possible at the expense of a consumer's credit scores. Okay, so with verified disputes, whether or not a dispute is verified depends entirely on the response of the furnisher or, the creditor to a simple numeric code. Now, we keep talking about all these numeric codes and all that kind of stuff, and is it, something that you should be, like, should you know what these codes are? The answer to that is really no. It's not going to change the way that you dispute, really. It's not going to have any impact on it. So, I don't really go over any of that. But it, anyways, let's just move past that. So, let's look at these. So frivolous, what makes things worse, and you could tell how much this aggravates me because I'm like really flustered right now, right? What makes things worse is that once an item has come back as verified, any additional disputes on the same item can be deemed as frivolous, even if they're perfectly true and valid. Now, if a dispute is flagged because it was a follow-up, meaning like, hey, you didn't respond, or it was verified, so here's my response, then one strategy would be to attempt to prove that the creditor didn't do their job the first time, right? Because in other words, the only way repeat disputes can be flagged as frivolous is if the creditor actually fulfilled their duty the first time. And I don't know about you, but I think that they never do their job. Now, so if a round two dispute is flagged because it's a repeat of a previous dispute, which was either ignored or wrongfully verified, then the creditor or bureau may be in violation of the FCRA. Now, you need to keep that in mind because all of these little things, some that maybe you did know and some maybe you didn't, all these little things go to optimize your entire dispute process. And it doesn't matter what type of method you're using or what whatever, all of this goes into your arsenal, right? Like you open up your bag and you've got all your tools and all this kind of stuff. All of this knowledge, it just goes into the little spaces that you have in there, right? So that you can pick this one up and use it when you want, put it in there, and then, you go and pick up another one, you use it and put it in there. All of these things that I teach you, that I show you, they all have a purpose, okay? All right, so I want to show you something, and this is directly off the eOscar website, and this is called the batch interface. And this, you have no idea. Okay, so directly from the eOscar website, the batch interface is an exciting product offering that allows data furnishers with large volumes of automated consumer dispute verification, ACDV, requests to receive a batch file in an XML format. Once the file is delivered, each data furnisher can further automate the development of responses to the ACDV. The development effort by the data furnisher to achieve the benefits of the batch interface will vary depending on the data furnisher's internal business and compliance requirements. For example, one data furnisher may choose to auto-populate the response fields automatically for staff review prior to submission. This business plan would save your staff the time and potential errors of data entry. Another data furnisher may elect to automate only certain response types. For example, the data furnisher may only automate delete responses. Okay, so basically, the batch interface not only allows them to like process a crap load of verifications at once, but it also allows them to pre-populate the response and to automate it so that the only approval level would need to be on something that says that would match a deletion, right? So everything else goes through automatically. There's no human involved on it whatsoever. Like, so they have 50,000 go through and not even one person looked at it. But then they have like 100 that were like, that came up as deletions because either there was no record or whatever. And then those are the ones that they would have to look at. And this is something you can go look at and look for yourself. Like, I'm like flustered right now, like I said, because this whole thing pisses me off. So I'm like a little bit tongue-tied, but yeah, batch interface directly from the eOscar website. Now, if you want to find it directly, all you have to do is Control F and then type in batch interface, and it should take you directly to there. Seriously, the system is broken, even at its best. Now, I was watching Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel when I made this page, and so that's why it says meticulously debunked. So anywho, a system designed for you to fail and them to win. Will you let them? I mean, this is what you need to do. You need to carry on with your disputes. You need to achieve the vision because, yes, it is possible. It happens every single day, right? You need to remain patient, persistent, and consistent. And you always need to remember that the bureaus are there to dismiss you. You need to fight for your rights. I put out a video a couple of days ago. Or let you know that every single thing in life that is worth having is you're going to have to fight for it, and this is no different. It is so hard to get deletions. It's hard to get corrections. It's hard to raise your score. It's hard to move past this whole credit thing and get the car, get the house, get the job, get the whatever, the new neighborhood, the new state, the new whatever goes into that blank spot. Okay, but the straight path to victory is by using factual based disputes. It's not by sending in templates, and it's not by doing this, and it's not by doing that. It is by using factual based disputes and by doing this correctly, and you will get there. Now, if you do need help, I am offering a unique dispute method that is laser targeted to increasing the maximum capability of your credit report and decreasing the journey to get there. Now, I can teleport you to freedom. Yeah, teleport. So anywho, if you want to learn more, if you want me to do this for you, if you want to say screw this entire process, I throw up my hands and I give up, that's okay in this situation because 4 in 10 people are accepted that apply to the program. All right, so schedule your call right now to see if we can make your journey a little less bumpy, and you can do that at expertcreditsweeps.com/book online. It is on your screen, it is in your ear, and it is also in the description. All right, I did write a couple of things on here. Forged by Fire, I don't know what that was about, but powered by factual disputes, forged by fire, more like a relentless woman, backed by a decade of experience, and join the only credit family that I didn't finish that sentence. So anywho, I'm going to go to the next page now, but once again, you can go do that at expertcreditsweeps.com/book online. Now, if you want to continue to do this yourself, that is totally fine. You have so many options. I have 400 videos here on YouTube that show you how to do this for free. 400 videos on YouTube that show you how to do this for free yourself the right way. All right. So yeah. You can also go and learn to factually dispute for free with Dispute IQ at thevegasmovement.com/dispute IQ level 1. Now, in the link on your screen, you will see that I forgot to put the IQ after dispute. So it is dispute IQ level 1. All right. On the Dispute IQ, it's really, really simple. I created a couple of levels and a couple of sections, and all of section 1 is free. You will learn by taking a quiz. It's really, really simple, but it works. It works. I'm getting a ton of feedback, and it's really hard to get feedback from people. So I can see that it definitely works, and I'm glad that I created it. All right. So you can go to, and this link is correct, thevegasmovement.com/revolution-store, and you can check out the things that I currently do have available, but it's software and apps. Most of them are available via the cloud, and I tested it all so that you don't have to. You just get the results as long as you do this the right way, right? You can create your own credit destiny. You just have to put in the time, invest in yourself, invest in your future, and you will get there. Now, lastly, the doors are closing in a few days to get into the beta coaching program. All right. After that, I mean, you're just going to be too far behind. And I just don't want that for anybody. All right. We all need to be on the same page. So if you have a business, if you want to have a business and you need more money, more clients, and better results, then you can go to thevegasmovement.com/coaching. You have until September 15th. All right. So for the rest of you, I will, see you later. Talk to you later. Help you later. Once again, if you need my help, go to expertcreditsuits.com/book online, and I will see if I can help you. And other than that, guys, I will see you later. Have a great one. Stay safe, wear your mask, and yeah, bye.